Hangout that we're going to be having with a number of celebrities, fantastic pastor of a ministry that is doing excellently well, and Channels Television is happy to be a part of this and to host this particular Google Hangout. Our key guests, will go through the list of names shortly, but I first must recognize the fact that it's a great honor and privilege to have Pastor Paul Adefarasin. Good evening, sir, and how are you today?
I'm doing well. Delighted to make your acquaintance and for the first time to hang out with Google.
Good. So this is your first time on Google Hangout. We've done this a few times here.
I've never been on Google Hangout before, so I'm delighted and getting ready to enjoy the experience of sharing your knowledge and cross-pollinating ideas as to how we can find a deep sense of purpose for our shared community across the Nigerian borders.
Excellent. We will make this one that you will remember for good, and you will want another one very soon. So let's run through those who are here, starting from my immediate left, and I will just say your name I got here, Akin Pelumi Oluyemi. Good to have you here. It looks like we just lost your video there. Then Christopher is Christopher Ejema. Good to have you.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, we've got Pastor Paul, and then we've got Fela Durotoye. Of course, we have Lanre Olusola, who is here as well. And then we have Ifeanyi Afara. Of course, just next to that will be Kunle Afolayan. Okoyemi is Okoyemi Fashola. The gentleman here is Okafor Ifeanyi. And then, of course, myself, who's moderating this conversation. So I will start by asking the topic that we're looking at discussing today, and this is going to be a conversation. It's going to be an opportunity to address an issue that a lot of people have tried to chew on and come up with solutions and answers, but somehow it never got implemented. We're talking of purpose and the word Nigeria in the same breath. I will start with Pastor Paul Adefarasin. When we talk about purpose and Nigeria, what goes through your mind with 55, 56, approaching 56 years of independence?
Well, after 55, 56 years of independence, Nigeria ought to be much further along in her destiny, her possibilities, and have much better exploited her potential. And if the word purpose simply means the reason for the existence of a thing, a person, a group, a society, or a nation, we must then understand that the purpose is determined by the manufacturer or creator of the thing, purpose, or the country, in our case, a country. The big question that is begged by that inference is, who was the creator of Nigeria? Was it the British, our colonial masters, or was it the Almighty God? And if it was the British, what did they have in mind for Nigeria? Was it to serve their interests, or was it to serve the better good of the amalgam of several Nigerian peoples? And then if it was not the British who created Nigeria, and if God was in the mix whilst Nigeria was created, then we owe it to ourselves to find out what's on his mind for this great amalgam that has become a republic that's attempting to federate in the truest sense of the word federation. And I think answering some of those important questions, we will begin to navigate into the pathway that will distill for us our sense of purpose as a nation, and what our sense of purpose as a nation ought to be.
Do you think that we have an understanding of what we can call a sense of purpose in Nigeria? 55 years on, do we have a sense of purpose? Do we apply it to the things that concerns our nation?
Well, in my opinion, if you're still asking me, Mr. Moderator,
yes.
In my opinion,
yes.
I think what has happened in Nigeria is that the various component parts of the so-called federating republic seek for an opportunity to be in the center and in the grip of power. And that in itself cannot be a universal sense of purpose for our country. It has to be bigger than that. It has to be embracing for the whole nation, for all its people, so that we feel as one people and not several different nations or several different ethnicities coming together arbitrarily.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Paul. We have just been joined by Tiwa Savage. Tiwa, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Hello,
Good. I'm
everyone.
doing great to have you here. Now, we have a number of people who have sent questions, so we'll take this opportunity to run through some of their questions, and some of them have actually directed those questions at specific people who are on these Google Hangouts, so we'll take it as we go. But the intention here is to have a conversation. We want to have a conversation. But when you're not talking, please remember to mute your microphone. Thank you. Now I'll start with the first question that's just been passed to me. This question is from a gentleman called Kunle Omowale, I'm assuming, and he's directing it to Fela Durotoye. He says, do you have a platform where you could raise more motivational speakers who could be greater and understand the importance of purpose? So, up to you now.
Okay, first of all, let me say a very big thank you to you, my brother Kaede, and of course to my papa, Pastor Paul, my brothers Lanre and Kunle, and my superstar. I'm a big fan of Tiwa Savage, and to everybody who is here. So thank you for having me. And straight to the question, yes, there is a platform that we have called the Gemstone Speakers Academy. Oh, sorry, I can barely hear myself. I think there's a lot of background noise. I don't know whether everybody else can hear it.
It is important. Whoever has the
There's a
microphone
little baby.
yes, please reduce the volume of your microphone. Just put it off so that everybody will know that you've got your microphone on mute. And
Thompson,
then
how do I switch the microphone off?
Okay, Fela, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. So yes, there is a platform that we set up quite a few years ago called the Gemstone Speakers Network. And Gemstone stands for a generation that is empowered, motivated, and stirred to operate with natural excellence. As far back as 2004, we've been raising and having a platform called the Speakers Corner, where we gather every month up to about 600 people who are interested in developing the gift of the gab and speaking to the purpose of the nation. Many of those people, Lanre, Olusola, and myself, for the last 10 years, have on and off been grooming people that have developed their giftings and have deployed the message of purpose for Nigeria. And for us, understanding that Nigeria, there is a generation today whose purpose is to transform Nigeria from its true potentially great nation that it can be into a truly great nation. And Lanre and I have been doing a lot of work over the last 10 years on this. Just last year, again, we set up this connect called the Speakers Connect, and we've trained in the last 1 year over 650 speakers that are taking the message of purpose across. So if you'd like to join the Gemstone Speakers Network, we'll be able to tell you how to do that.
Excellent. So that means I can take the opportunity, because you mentioned Lanre, I'll take the next question that's just come in. And this one is for Lanre Olusola, and it's from a person called Glaze. I'm not sure whether it's meant to be Grace. Glaze NG. How did you discover your purpose, and what tip do you have for people trying to discover theirs? Lanre.
All right, thank you very much, Carol Day, and thank you very much, Blaze, for the question. And I celebrate everyone that is on the platform. But going straight to the answer, it may interest you to realize that I studied civil engineering in school, and up until 10 years ago, I was a serial entrepreneur. I was running 8 different businesses. But like Pastor Paul said, every product has a manufacturer, and you want to know how to optimize of a product, you go to the manual, or you go to the manufacturer and begin to ask questions. One day in a place of prayer, I began to, ask certain questions, and those are very key and fundamental questions that I believe that anyone who discovers his purpose must ask. None, I asked God, who am I? Number two, I asked God, why am I here? Number three, I asked God for what purpose to create me. I asked him what solution was I created to be? What problems was I created to solve? And who has a problem that I'm a solution to? And in a period of about 6 months, I began to seek for answers to those questions. And invariably, I found the answers to those questions. And 10 years down the line, I found out that, this is what I'm doing now, being a life, mind, emotions, and behavioral change coach and psychotherapist is what God has created me to. So I shut down all of my 8 businesses, and I'm pursuing that which I am created to be. Now, the important thing is that everyone was created for a purpose. Everyone is created to be a solution to a particular problem. And you must ask your creator. You must seek an answer to those questions that I've just asked. Who am I? Why am I here? What solution was I born to be? Who has a problem that I'm a solution to? And where are they? And how can I best, position myself to solve those problems? I look at Kunle from Lion today. I cannot imagine Kunle doing something else. He's excelling in everything that he's doing because he has found his purpose. And that is where you can find fulfillment, satisfaction, and that is where you can find a lot of success. So everyone is created with a gift. Everyone is created with a purpose. And it is our responsibility to begin to seek and to find those questions. Now, to simply find your purpose, use an acronym called HAPPY. H-A-P-P-Y. H stands for what is your heart's desire? That you've always wanted to be. Who is it that you've always wanted to be? The second thing is A. What are your natural abilities? What are the natural things that come to you? What are the easy things that you've always done that it seemed like, it was easy? Then the next one is P. What is your personality? And what are you passionate about? And Y is what is it that you've always been asked to do in your yesterday? What is it that you've consistently been asked to do for free? What is it that you've always done from your past? And what is it that you consistently did in your yesterday that brought you fulfillment, satisfaction, and accomplishment? And if you go through that process, you will consistently, asking those questions, you will find your purpose.
Okay, excellent. Now, let me take this back to Pastor Paul Adefarasin. Now, in terms of the purpose for Nigeria, again, I'm keen to find out, and I know that a lot of Nigerians will be keen to ask you, sir, what is the purpose of this nation from your understanding? You've been in existence at the very least about 21 years, I reckon. So that means that you're at least 21 years old, and in your 21 years on earth, what do you perceive to be the purpose of Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is endowed with, first of all, immense diversity, which means that our opportunities are legion. Secondly, Nigeria is endowed or gifted with vast natural resources, of which oil is perhaps not the most important. Thirdly, Nigeria has an intensely aggressive people in its northern part of the country, its southern part of the country, its eastern, western, and central part of the country. And that aggression is powerful momentum. Thirdly, Nigeria has people who are uniquely enabled or gifted to survive. We've survived the very worst, and somehow we found a way to still remain as one. But the big question for me is going to be, what was in the mind of the creator when he created Nigeria? And who was the creator? Was Nigeria created by the British? And if Nigeria was created by the British, what was on their mind when they created Nigeria? And was that creative purpose what ought to be the purpose for our togetherness, our nationhood, as we stand today? And I suspect that the creative purpose on the mind of the British when Nigeria was created was more so to serve British interests than the interest of the amalgam of Nigerian peoples and the individual Nigerian citizen, which means I think we need to revisit what was on the mind of the creator of the Nigeria by the British and perhaps correct those foundational errors and develop a sense of purpose based on the interests, the genuine interests and needs and potential of our nation Nigeria. And that will take some important minds coming together. And I want to use a few moments, and I'll try and get through it very quickly, to consider some of the great nations of the world. The American nation was made up originally of people who left an oppressive monarchy in Great Britain or in the United Kingdom and sailed at the risk of their own lives in search of Newfoundland and found the Americas. And there they entered the continent seeking to find freedom and justice, freedom to exploit and explore all their possibilities and potentials, and also justice to arbitrate when one's freedoms impinged on another's. And those two major value points have helped to drive the American sense of purpose and inform the dream of every American that I can be great in the midst of a great nation and a great people. If you look at France, they were also under an oppressive monarchy, and that monarchy eventually invoked a revolution. And the revolution established as one of its fundamental value judgments for its sense of purpose as the value judgment known as equality. South Africa also had an oppressive racist regime that invoked or provoked the struggle of people who didn't enjoy the privileges associated with that regime. And that struggle was informed by a value system of equality and the majority principle as some of its fundamental values. Israel, surrounded by belligerent nations who were always at enmity with her, is informed largely by many great values, but intrinsic amongst all of them is the value judgment of security. Now, what's Nigeria's problem? If we look closely at her problem, it might inform us as to what our sense of purpose is. It's complex to bring so many different people together. We have 500 different dialects, of which 250 are languages representing 250 different ethnicities. Pulling those people together will require some careful social engineering to give us a sense of oneness, of a unique character that's common to all of us whilst preserving our diversity. And I honestly think when you look at Nigeria, our purpose must be informed by equity for all Nigerians, so that nobody is disparaged, that everybody has equal opportunity. Education will be an important part of driving that ethos. Secondly, Nigeria is endowed with so much natural resource that there's enough to go around if we develop a value judgment of giving our nation and her children a great opportunity at education, so that instead of taking our resources, farming them out to the Western world, have the Western world put the value of their education on the resource, selling it back to us at a premium, so that we don't really profit from what is ours. And if we drive the education issue a lot stronger, I think that we will ultimately develop a nation that is capable of harnessing her resources, exploiting them for her own interests and for the opportunity that affords her own people. I would also say then that as a nation, we must begin to breed equality and equity into how we think about our brother across the ethnic space of the 250 different ethnicities in the country. And so those are just a few things I want to share out there, but because I recognize there are many others in our Hangout, I don't want to eat up all the time.
Yes. No, it's all right, Pastor Paul. It's okay. We're happy to share, but to have some part of your experience and your knowledge. Now, let me very quickly go to Tiwa. I think there's a question for you here. This is from Ogunleye Omowale, and the question he's asking is, what efforts are you making to bring back home some of our great musicians in diaspora? Who are the people you're collaborating with? How do you bring them back home?
Wow. First of all, good afternoon to everyone. Sorry I was a bit late, but I'm actually on set, and it's a great honor for me to be part of this. The question, what am I doing? I think you mean in terms of Nigerian artists or international
Nigerian
artists?
artist, I reckon. It
Okay.
wasn't, yeah, the great musicians in diaspora.
I think earlier on someone had mentioned that we all have a purpose, and I think one of the things that I think was my purpose was to actually encourage Nigerian artists, especially Nigerian female artists. I know that when I first moved to Nigeria as a female artist, it was extremely difficult. One, because the acceptance was hard. My accent was still very strong. Even though I speak Yoruba, a lot of people did not believe or want to. They didn't know how genuine my intention was coming back to Nigeria. But by the grace of God, the success of my story has encouraged a lot more female artists to move back from the UK, from the US, Europe, and to pursue their musical careers in Nigeria. And it's very great and interesting to see because, you know, when you move out of Nigeria, the thing that sets you apart is that thing, being Nigerian, being African, being an African woman. And so the best way to do it is to move back to Nigeria. And yeah, they say it begins at home. So if your people are behind you, you're able to conquer the world.
Okay, so let me just quickly run into the second question. This one is from Tonia Odili, also for you, and she says, what is your dream for Nigeria, and what efforts are you making to influence the youths positively through your music?
My dream for Nigeria, it has changed a lot since I had my son. I dream of a safe Nigeria, most especially healthcare in Nigeria. Obviously a better Nigeria, but more importantly, I think for me, a Nigeria that I can say is very safe for everyone, for children especially. My music, I think, for the most part, is very it's happy. It's about love. I sing a lot about love. For me, I think that is a pretty big topic, and I think when you sing about love, you evoke a certain emotion within the people, and I think that's a very strong message as well for Nigeria. I think we need to learn to start loving each other again. Like Pastor Paul said, it's very diverse, and I think we do, as a people, as a nation, we need to start learning to appreciate, to respect, and to love the diversity we have amongst each other.
Okay. I will very quickly run back to Pastor Paul Adefarasin again. You have created something that you have a purpose for, and you expect it to influence the actualization of the purpose that you have. So, Pastor Paul, if I may ask you, what is the purpose of the experience you established, which is run throughout your
There's no question. Somebody else is talking. I think one of the other personalities in the Hangout was speaking at the same time, so I didn't hear your question clearly.
Okay. May I reiterate, gentlemen and lady, please mute your microphone if you have any kind of distraction, verbal or visual. Please mute your microphone so that we can get this done very quickly and take the best advantage of this conversation. So, Pastor Paul, I'll come back to you. You have created what is called the experience, and there is a purpose for it. And I guess that purpose has a ripple effect on the purpose for Nigeria from your perspective. What is the purpose of the experience?
All right. The experience, in my initial understanding of the experience, which has grown far beyond the initial exposure to what was on the mind of its creator, was simply to gather people together in not as large numbers as we have today, to encounter and experience God's presence, God's power, God's goodness, God's kindness, God's wisdom, God's light, which informs purpose, and have that as a shared experience across a plethora of people from different ranks, realms of the socioeconomic strata within the body of Christ, but also extended a hand out to people outside of the body of Christ. And to our surprise, it attracted far many more people than we expected, and we realized it became an opportunity for the unifying of the church, the unifying of Nigerians, the demonstration of excellence within that fold of people, a branding opportunity for Nigeria to say to the world and the many visitors from around the world that Nigeria can do things excellently, purposefully, in an organized way, and that young Nigerians do know how to govern by the demonstrations of the excellence that the young people who have come together to support the experience have illustrated through 9 years of hosting the event, of which 8 times was at the Tafawa Balewa Square, including Cricket Pitch Square and its environs. It also says that a people can be united. The other thing that it does, as a matter of purpose, is it's given Nigerian artists to stand toe-to-toe, pound-for-pound, with equity and equality with some of their finest counterparts from across the pond. It's helped to generate respect, mutual respect for the Nigerian gospel music industry, and it's also an opportunity, interestingly, for networking, because Nigerians from influential sectors and classes, along with Nigerians from every aspect of the socioeconomic strata, all gather together, and we worship for about 10 to 12 hours and enjoy the glory of God together, and we pray together for our nation very purposefully. And some of the things that we deal with in prayer are the things that are fundamental to the purpose of any nation. That would include healthcare, infrastructural development, electrical power development, security, safety, good governance, and the likes. And essentially, that's what the experience represents. And we didn't find out all it was capable of doing at the first entrance into the experience of the experience, but over the years, we discovered that it had much more to its sense of purpose than we originally observed at the first time that we held the experience. And most of the men and women that I see there have been at the experience, and I think can perhaps testify that when God creates something deliberately, and you follow that deliberation carefully, it's manifold. No individual is sequestered to just one minor dimension of purpose, but the purpose is manifold and affects many different aspects of human life and the community of faith and the community outside of faith. And the journey of following purpose is an exciting one because you find out more and more things as you go. I really liked what Kupi, as I call him, Lanre, said when he spoke about how he found his purpose by asking a few important questions. And I think that's the micro illustration of what we need as a nation on a macro level. And I think the first thing that we must do to attain our purpose, we must begin to agitate and speak to our oneness, our equality, and yet respect our individual diversity as persons and as component aspects of the federating unit. Nigeria is often called a federal republic. I think the term republic is only part true as it concerns Nigeria, and the term federating has not yet been fully achieved. Of the 36 states in Nigeria, I'm not sure how many of them are truly viable. I'll give you a few examples. When we were 3 states, Northern, Eastern, and Western, we had 1 commissioner for education in Northern Nigeria. Today, we have 19. Yet, with that 1 commissioner back in the 60s, he was able to achieve a lot more, perhaps, than we're achieving with 19. Government is quite heavy in this day and age. Likewise, in Southern Nigeria, we had 1 commissioner for what today is nearly 20 states, 17 states, for a particular dimension of governance. And I believe that resources in a country should be allowed to find expression within the federating components. What we have in Nigeria today is a unitary system that doesn't truly allow healthy federation between the various components that federate together as one. What I mean to say is, Fela lives in his house. Far be it from me to try and govern him in his house and control what goes on in his house. I live in my house, and I govern my own home. But Fela and I might meet at the club, and at the club we can find a sense of equity and partnership and pay our dues to the club for the governance of the club. But the various federating components ought to have some sense of genuine autonomy, so that their resources are controlled at their own location. That's an interesting concept. I don't want to drive it too far, but I thought I'd put that out there because I think it's quintessential to Nigeria's proper development if we can reach the true meaning of our name, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay.
Just the next question I want to raise, I guess I understand that Akinpelu Oluyemi is here, and you probably have a question you want to raise, you want to ask. You want to go ahead with that very quickly, make it short. Akinpelu, do you want to and ask your question?
Okay. Through chat. Okay, sorry, 1 minute.
You have a question, and who is it for? Okay, not sure whether we lost you. Okay, Christopher, you have a question, and who would you want to ask the question? Please go ahead quickly.
Good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations to Pastor Paul on the 10th anniversary of the experience. I really am looking forward to a great experience on Friday. My question is to Tiwa Savage and Kunle Afolayan. You guys are great influence in the music and movie entertainment industry. I really want you to tell us, those watching now, how your work have been able to, portray to the world how they see Nigerians, aside from its negativity, that we are positive people, we are purpose-driven persons. That's my question for Tiwa and Kunle.
Okay, let's go with. Okay, let's start with Kunle. Kunle, please go ahead.
Okay, well, good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon, sir, and Mr. Fela, Mr. Lanre, everyone. Well, for me, I think I try to speak more with my work. I'm not really a vocal person when it comes to explaining how I get it done, because most times when I set out to do something, I always see the end result, and this is something I think an average Nigerian youth out there should, cultivate. That habit of seeing results before you embark on the journey, because that is what will propel you. That is what will keep you. What's that? Okay, so I mean that is what will give you the push. All the films that I have done, to a large extent, in all of its elements, have celebrated Nigeria and Africa, and this was my purpose right from the beginning, because I saw what was obtainable in the Nigerian film industry and entertainment film industry at large, and I realized that is either you're Yoruba and you're doing Yoruba film, or you're Igbo or South and you're doing English speaking films. A lot of people don't bring together all of those elements, like our culture, from costume to music, to language and all of that. And if you look at my films, Rapada, Figurine, Phone Swap, October 1 and all of that, I set out to, first of all, enlighten and also correct and educate as well. October 1, to a large extent, yes, it's a story of Nigeria, but it has so many components that deals with where we're coming from as a nation, and where we are now and where we are heading. I've received a lot of emails from people who are saying, "Oh, Senate should lock all the senators in one room and play the film for them to see. And this is what you get when your work speaks for you. And there are quite a number of people in the music industry, who are doing the same. And I know there are quite a number of people in my industry who are also doing the same. We're not doing film just to entertain. We're doing films to educate. We're doing films to enlighten, and we're doing film to give hope, to the younger generations that this thing can actually be done here, and for the world to see.
Okay, so having said that, over to you, Tiwa.
Yeah, to me, I think, again, I can only speak from music, and I think music is the soundtrack of the people. Pastor Paul mentioned something earlier and said Nigerians are very resilient. We seem to be able to survive the worst situations. And for a nation that gets so much bad press around the world, from corruption to terrorism, we seem to somehow still be a happy set of people. I say that because I've done a lot of concerts outside of Nigeria, and a lady actually said to me that our music, she notices, always gets people dancing. Like, Nigerians love upbeat music, which is quite ironic, because on the other hand, the press Nigeria gets is not that great, but our music reflects the opposite. Our music is very upbeat. So I think that's basically what I think as musicians we try to project. We're trying to reverse that role, that image of Nigeria through music, that we are a great nation, we are good people, we have great natural resources, we are blessed as a country, and our music, I think, for the most part, reflects that energy, that good vibe that Nigerian people have to the core. Our music reflects that, our movies reflects that, our fashion industry is starting to reflect that as well. We're very vibrant. In fact, I can say to an extent we are the envy of other African countries, and it's just because we're blessed as a people, and our music is a soundtrack of that. Our music is a soundtrack of how the people really feel, regardless of the situation that's going on in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much, Tiwa. Now let me go back to Pastor Paul now, and the thoughts of a couple of people who are reacting to some of the things being discussed here on Twitter and other social media platforms is the success of Nigeria, or successes of Nigeria, are almost as many as our failures. How do we find people that would understand the purpose of Nigeria and drive her towards achieving that, is the question being asked here. Pastor Paul, please.
I think that has an awful lot to do with the politics of Nigeria. Nigeria is a polity, and we, over the last 101 years, we have invested so much in educating some Nigerians, those to whom education was an important prerogative. They've ensured for, 3 or 4 generations now that education was fundamental to human growth, human possibility, and human development, and of course, by inference, national development. But the pain of Nigeria is that it hasn't always been the best serving the rest. It's often been not quite the best, lording it over the rest. But we see a wonderful change with the last election, where you have 2 great devotees of faith. One of them came up through a military system where there's a lot of discipline, where he as an individual has personal integrity, and the force of his moral rectitude lends itself to rediscipling our nation and instituting discipline again as an important value judgment for the Nigerian character. Whilst the other, the vice president, is a man of letters. He's a professor at law, a very deep and profound thinker, a person given to thought, who has challenged his thinking to look at what the solutions are to Nigeria's massive problems. And if you listen carefully at his thought processes, I think we have an opportunity now that you have these kind of qualitative personalities and their ilk coming into governance. Of course, the space is not pervaded by their ilk, but at least it's a very, very good start. Looking at aspects of the economic team, there is some promise. And I think that they ought to be given time and a chance and support our prayers, our commitment. And I believe that with that, we will begin to see forward movement in our development. And so fundamentally then, if I'm to answer your question, I think we have to create a political system or develop a political system that allows the best to come and serve the rest, not the worst to lord it over the rest. And that means that we want people who generally have the national interest at heart, who have capacity, competence, enlightenment, know-how, respectability, and moral authority to be able to drive the axioms that inform Nigeria's purpose at the elementary level. Simple things like it must be purposeful for us to develop infrastructure. Infrastructure for power generation, distribution and transmission, infrastructure for communication, infrastructure for transportation, infrastructure for education, infrastructure for enlightenment, so that without enlightenment we live in the darkness of inter-ethnic conflict, but with enlightenment we can forge bridges to forge a unity that is indestructible, that's indivisible. God himself said concerning the people of the earth that these people are one. Nothing will be impossible to them because they are unified. And once we can find unity around some fundamental axioms of a shared sense of purpose and perhaps even need, Nigeria will advance significantly. We will not tolerate the worst, lording it over the rest, but seek out the best to lead the rest. And I'm proud of the Nigerian nation that in this last election this year, we found a way to move forward. We considered the best of the options that we had, and I'm proud of the opportunity that we have. It's not at its very, very, very best yet, but it's a fantastic start. It's a restart, and I think that Nigerians must embrace hope again. We must be part of these conversations. Must continue. They must continue at an agitative level that is polite and courteous. If I quickly can draw you back for a brief moment, it was a man of the cloth, as some of the men and women are there. I know many of them to be people of faith who are in the hangout this afternoon. It was a man of cloth in the midst of a movement that demanded equity and equality for all persons, regardless of their color, in the United States of America, which was quite a racist regime at the time. And look at us today. There are equal rights across the world. What was equal rights or civil rights in America came across the pond as the independence movement for colonies of the United Kingdom. And I think that we can't leave it to beaver any longer. The most important citizen in Nigeria is not the #1 citizen. It's not the president. It's not the vice president. The most important citizen in Nigeria is the individual. Nigeria exists for him, and he exists for Nigeria. And that one individual must be carried along. He must become the most important person, or his needs to be met by those who serve him. And I think service is an important word in the lexicon of public service and civil service. And once we can turn it around correctly so that it's not lordship but servanthood, I think that we will, through orientation, develop a public system that looks to catering to the needs, the possibility, and the potential of the individual in the context of the whole. And I believe Nigeria will be great. I want my grandchildren to be born into a country where they can subscribe to a dream that I too can be a great entrepreneur, innovator, inventor. I can be the next Fela Durotoye, or the next Lanre, or the next Tiwa, or the next Afolayan, or the next channels creator. And I think our possibilities are huge around it. I feel this quite passionately.
Okay. Pastor Paul, thank you very much. But I want to take what you've just said and drive it into the question that has just been asked by Uzo. And this question is directed at Lanre Olusola. And Uzo is saying you're a major influencer and leader in your area of expertise. This is for Lanre. So he says, or she says, I'm not sure if Uzo is a man or a woman. And the question is, what do you think each of us can do individually to achieve what we collectively want for our country? And secondly, what can we expect to see you do in regards of this? Nigeria exists for you. That's what Pastor Paul has said. Nigeria exists for me, for you, and for us individually, not for the president or vice president. So what would you do, or what can you see yourself doing in this regard?
All right. Thank you very much. And, you know, I like the dimension that Pastor Paul brought in. Nigeria is not a geographical space. Nigeria is you and I. There will never be a Nigeria without you and I. Now, you and I have to understand the essence for which we exist. And we all have to understand the dynamics of existence. So, for example, form and function are critical to purpose. Size and mandate are critical to purpose. Now, you must have a feeling of who you are and why you're wired the way you are towards fulfilling your purpose. And if each and every one of us as individuals, we fulfill our purpose, and collectively we will fulfill our purpose as a nation. For example, it is important for us to understand our size. It is important because if you look at the current map of the world, you will find out that in the current map of the world, England is 3 times or 4 times the size of China on the map. But in actual sense, China is 4 times the size of Greenland. And so China has understood their size, and they have taken charge of world commerce and production. Now, Nigeria on the map is seen to be 3 times smaller than the size of North America. Africa is 3 times the size of North America. So what am I saying? If we do not understand who we are, if we do not understand our form and our size, we will never maximize our potential. So on the map of a continent, Africa is seen as smaller than North America. But in actual sense, we are much bigger, which means that as Africans, as Nigerians, we need to see ourselves bigger than we are, because we really are bigger than we are. Now, if we go back in time, go back in history, we will begin to find out that a lot of times when there's problems, when there's chaos, when there's famine in the entire world, the world came to Africa for sustenance. That is one of the critical purposes and functions that Africa has. We sustain the world with natural resources to sustain the world. We have the agricultural resources to sustain the world. We have the human resource and the mind and the capacity to sustain the world. And we need to come to full fruition of who we are. We need to fulfill our entire mandate and fulfill our full potential. And when we do, the whole world will recognize who we are. Now, it's important also that we begin to tell our stories, because the Western world will not tell our stories. We need to tell our stories through our work, through excellence, through media, which means that we need to own media. And it's not just Nigerian media. We need to own media across Africa. We need to own media across the continent of the world. We need to speak about who we are through our gifts and our talents, through our music, movies, through our culture. And no one is going to tell our story for us. We need to be the captain of our ship. We need to be the driver towards our destiny. And we need to be the masters of our fate. And when we do take personal responsibility, when we recognize that it is beyond just living and just eating and just existing, there is a mandate for us as a people, individually and collectively in the scheme of things across the world. So if you and check out the medical practice across the world, you will find Nigerians excelling there. And they say that if you pull out all the Nigerians in the medical system in America, the system may crash. If you pull out the medical practitioners that are Nigerian, the UK medical system will crash. Now you begin to see problems of Nigerians across the world. Nigerians everywhere we go, we excel. We are an excellent nation, we're an excellent people, and the Nigeria that I want to see in the next 20, 50 years, an environment where we create an enabling place where people can achieve every dream that they have. People are living content, peaceful lives. People's marriages, people's homes, people's businesses, and people's careers are fulfilling. This is a country that I would love to see, and this is a vision that I'd like to see for Nigeria. And for each and every one of us, we have a purpose to fulfill. If each one of us is fulfilling our mandate, you are that best mechanic, and the other person is that best painter, and the other person is that best pastor, and the other person is that best coach, and the other person is that best musician across the continents of the world, then we are fulfilling our mandate as a nation.
Excellent. That's a good way to sum it up. We're beginning to wrap up, but the first thing I want to raise a question with in terms of a wrap up now is a question from Sheon, and it's for you, Kunle. Sheon is asking Kunle this question. He says, you're a renowned filmmaker, and Pastor Paul has consistently said that movies are one of the mountains that shapes the mindset and thinking of the people. I guess that Pastor Paul will confirm whether he actually said that. But the question here is, when will Nigerian filmmakers start to tell the stories that would help to shape Nigeria? So, Kunle, what's your thought? When will Nigerian filmmakers start to tell the stories that shape the nation? This is the final question. We have to start to wrap up.
I think Kunle has gone. He had a little note that said he had to go.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mute my. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Well, I think it started already. It started already with films like October 1. It started already with. There's a new film that is going to come out called 73, which is set in Nigeria 1973, and it talks about the military era and all of that. Now, it is not. We do a lot of group, coming together, a lot of talking and all of that. And I say to people that not until you start acting, not until you start putting all of this we talk about into practice, then people start seeing it. If you, anytime I listen to, Fela talk, or I listen to, Lanre talk, I always ask myself, how come I'm not wired this way? How come, I don't talk as well as Fela or Lanre? But look, we're all born with different gifts. And the important thing is for you to first identify this gift. The new film that we just made from the stable of Golden Effect, covers the entire Africa. And this takes me to what Lanre said earlier. To a large extent, we have done a whole lot in Nigeria. Personally, I think I have captured the Nigerian market. And now I'm trying to capture Africa, and what I try to do is do something that will appeal to the entire Africa and bring Africa together. Then we sell it to the world, because Africa as a continent is even enough. And once we have that capture, then you might not even need, the external, people from outside. But it is important that we don't just talk. It is important that, identify your purpose in life, dream about this essence of why you were being born, and just pursue it and just go for it. And with a lot of, prayer and grace, from God, you will definitely get there, and hard work as well. That's very key. Thank you.
Okay, final question for Fela. one of the things that's been raised is, when will Nigerians realize our purpose and it becomes a mantra like it was in a place like Singapore? Fela, what would you say to that? When would we realize this is our purpose and we'll make it a mantra in everything that we do?
Well, I think everybody has spoken very articulately about understanding purpose and how we bring it to pass. I think that the moment when Nigeria will begin as a nation to become conscious about its purpose, and then to consciously begin to actualize its purpose, will be when people begin to accept responsibility for the well-being of that nation. And when we have a critical mass of people, and I think that there's this very simple acronym I have called ABCD of what you call nation builders. A nation builder is someone who accepts responsibility for the well-being of their country, not just themselves or their careers. Yes, they do personal, but beyond them, the well-being of Nigeria. B, people who begin to believe in the potential of that nation, and more importantly, the potential of their generation to be able to actualize that purpose and potential for the nation. But C, they must then begin to commit their time, their energy, their resources to a set of values that will, first of all, emanate from themselves and through the sphere of influence into their own building up what you might think of as a cultural space around each person. And as we begin to have what you call a critical mass of people all building the similar cultural space with similar values across Nigeria, then you'll find what will emerge as a national value system. And the last one, D, is when they begin to do something. And we can talk about purpose, but purpose is never actualized by talking about it. Purpose is actualized by people doing the little thing that they can to actualize that vision. So for me, it's ABCD. We will have Nigeria on purpose when people begin to accept responsibility, believe the greatness of Nigeria, begin to commit themselves to, first of all, a personal value system. And there are 10 little things that I would like to quickly summarize. I know time is almost up. But when every Nigerian begins to say that, yes, I am born to live a life of leadership and excellence and to transform my country into a most desirable nation to live in. And because of that, I will do 10 things. I will make a positive impact on everyone I meet and everywhere I go. I will be a solution provider and not a part of the problem to be solved. I will be a role model worthy of emulation. I will be my best in all that I do, particularly the things I'm naturally good at. I will do the right thing at all times, regardless of who is doing the wrong thing. I will value time and make the best use of it. I will care and show respect to all through my words and my actions. I will consciously build a great legacy, starting now, today, and every day. I will live a life of integrity and honor, and I will make my family, my nation, and my God proud. Now, the more people begin to buy into similar value systems across the nation, the more we as a people will begin to live on purpose. So it's going to come by this critical mass. And what we are doing from the Gemstone community is, like I said, Gemstone is raising a generation that's empowered, motivated, and scared to operate with natural excellence. We've got this nation builders network, and it keeps growing by the thousands, by the week. You know, and the whole idea is, people are saying our purpose as a generation is to transform Nigeria into a truly great nation, a most desirable nation to live in, a nation where people, and that's basically how it goes. You know, this for me is how I believe that we will actualize.
Thank you very much, Fela. So the final question will be to wrap it all up, and I will pass that on to Pastor Paul Adefarasin. Actualization of the purpose of Nigeria. What will be 1, 2, 3 steps that you will say we need to take from today to actualize our purpose?
Well, I think Lanre elucidated that quite nicely when he said he asked 3 questions that led him to the discovery of what his design purpose was by the designer of his life, the creator of his life. Who am I? Why am I here? And what are my gifts? And I think Nigeria is as much a personality as any one individual is. And as it applies at the micro, it also applies at the macro. So I think every single constituted body in Nigeria, as with every single Nigerian, ought to begin to ask those questions. The Senate, the executive, the judiciary, the justice system, the private sector, the various industries in the private sector must begin to associate and ask themselves that question as a group. And I think that will begin to lend itself to distilling a genuine sense of purpose, which will ultimately lead to the great Nigeria that Fela so articulately speaks of. But to come back to a question that you remarked on briefly, I did say that the movie industry does have a unique ability and power to shape the thinking of personalities. So Kunle's role is a very, very significant one. To understate or underestimate the role that Hollywood has played in shaping the way the world thinks is no small role at all. It's had significant impact on orienting the world. And to think that Nollywood, as young as it is, and as little opportunity as it has had comparative to America's Hollywood, is arguably the third largest movie industry in the world, then it creates a unique opportunity to begin to challenge the movie industry, to use their talent and their art as a platform for messaging to all Nigerians who willingly suspend their disbelief when they sit in a movie theater to watch a movie. And it becomes a great pulpit or lectern to which to shape the mind of the Nigerian, who's willingly available and impressionable every time he sits down in a movie theater. So I want to commend their art. I also want to challenge the Tiwa savages of this world, that messaging a Nigeria on purpose, as they understand it and see it, is very, very important in every lyric of every song, in all the art of all the people and persons in the creative art industry, because they have a unique opportunity in a pervasive, influential and powerful way to communicate and inspire Nigerians through their art to build a nation whose architect, builder and maker is the one who never fails in his design competence and who knows how to build great nations. He's built many already, and I believe that Nigeria is yielding herself to his creative talent, to his creativity and to our original purpose. And it won't be too long before a generation of Nigerians will be so happy to live in one of the most desirable nations to live in the world, if not the most desirable nation in the world.
Pastor Paul Adefarasin, thank you very much for being part of this Google Hangout, and I will say thank you to everybody that's being part of this Hangout today. My name is Kaide Akintemi, Channels Television. I must say thank you to Kunle Afolayan, Fela Durotoye. Kunle, thank you very much. Fela, thank you very much. We've since been left by Lanre, Olusola and Tiwa Savage. They've had to run off. They did send messages that they've got to fly. And we say thank you to Okafo Ifeanyi. We say thank you to you as well, Akinpelu. And of course, Christopher. We say thanks as well. So to everybody that's participated, thank you very much. Pastor Paul Adefarasin, I want to say again that this conversation is not over. I'm hoping that very soon again we'll have another Google Hangout so that we can discuss a lot more things that affect Nigerians and Nigerians in diaspora and all those who are capable of joining us, hang out with us in this way. Thank you very much, sir.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Well, once again, my name is Kaide Akintemi, wishing and hoping that you've had fun and you've learned one thing or the other by being part of this Google Hangout. We'll be back again very soon with another very interesting conversation, and hopefully Pastor Paul will be joining us in that conversation in the very near future. Thanks and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. It was fun hanging out.
Yeah. Uncle Kunle, thank you.
The pleasure is all ours at ChannelsTV.
Pastor, thank you.
Really a pleasure. Thank you. Great meeting all of you, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
You're welcome. We'll meet at the experience.
The experience will be the place. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.